Good
Hello.
morning, Mark. How are you
Good, Bill.
today? The first for 2025.
Where has the year before gone?
And we're looking, well, I guess 2025 is going to bring a lot of change, and we've already seen some change in another country with a gentleman called Donald, haven't we?
We have.
And we've got elections here. The economy still is, I guess, downward in our opinion, and it's a struggle for small business owners and for family business owners, the people I deal with. But I think it'll take an interest rate, change and maybe Easter, and we look forward to better times.
And it's interesting though, I don't know if you saw the news this morning, but they moved the doomsday clock forward slightly this morning by 8 seconds or 18 seconds, and I thought, that's not a good look, is it?
Yeah, well, if you want to believe it, yeah, that's right. But today, Mark, it's interesting. We're actually in a railway station.
We're at Drysdale Railway Station, to be
Yes.
precise,
And-
with hundreds of cockatoos flying around outside.
And what an experience, I guess, this whole concept. And I'll get you to introduce our guest and talk about the business that we are in today.
So kicking off this year, we are still working our way through the Geelong Business Excellence Award winners.
Yes.
And I'm very pleased we're sitting here with Marie-Claire Trotter, or MC, as she said to her friends. Welcome,
Yes.
Marie-Claire.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
And Marie-Claire is the CEO of the Q Train. Now, if you don't know about the Q Train, we'll talk more about it at the end, but it is a great experience. We did it a few years ago.
Oh, lovely.
Fantastic food, great service, and a really nice experience. So,
And
Thank you
Mark,
very
as you
much.
talk about it's an award winner, and I know you won a tourism award in recent times.
Yes, late last year we won the Victorian Tourism Award for Tourism Restaurant, which was very exciting. I think I cried for about a week. And then we're off in March to the Australian finals.
Oh,
So-
good luck.
oh,
with
good
that.
luck.
Thank you.
Yes.
No, oh, well, but yeah, we'll know. But yeah,
Yes.
that's fantastic. So, Marie-Claire, we always start with, where did you go to primary school?
I went to a few different primary schools. I started at Ross Creek Primary School, which is near Ballarat.
Yep.
There was 3 girls in my year, so we weren't a very big school. And my dad was the local mechanic, and my mum was an ED nurse, and we lived in farming country. And then when I was about 9, we moved to Bendigo, because my dad became a teacher. And then when we moved to Bendigo, I went to Camp Hill Primary School, which I just loved.
And high school?
Flora Hill Secondary College and
Yep.
Bendigo Senior Secondary College.
Very good. So, Bendigo born and bred as such, as
Yeah,
they say.
ended up.
Bendigo educated.
Yes.
So, stalking your LinkedIn profile,
Mm-hmm.
acting features prominently. So, in your school days, did that start? Is that where it all began?
Absolutely. In grade 4, Mum thought that if I did drama class, I might be a bit quieter at home, and it had the exact opposite effect. All it did was teach me how to speak more clearly. Acting has played a really important role in my life. In primary school and in high school, I did all the plays, and then I got into drama school for my first degree at university was acting.
So, that was going to be your passion?
Absolutely, and it still plays an important role in my life, but acting, I was going to be the next Nicole Kidman.
Well, maybe you could still achieve that.
Look,
You never know.
maybe one day, but I like stories and I like people, and acting is that at its core. And there's just something, I mean, I particularly like Shakespeare. That's always been my first love.
Okay.
Shakespeare is what I like the best. I love the poetry and I love the universality of it, that he was telling stories so long ago and they're still so true now. Acting is still very important, but once I finished university and I started acting and going to auditions and living in Melbourne and being poor, I decided that I also wanted to expand my skill sets to maybe earn an income.
Because it is tough, isn't it?
Oh.
Because you're going really from gig to gig.
It is really difficult, and there's an awful lot of pressure. Well, there was 15 years ago an awful lot of pressure on appearances. And there's a lot of pressure to be dieting and to be skinny and to look young, and that didn't play very well in my brain. I wasn't very good at separating that
Yeah.
from my life. So that was one of the reasons that I thought maybe a professional career as an actor at that point wasn't for me.
So I've got a really interesting coincidence.
Yes?
Yesterday I was doing some research on visioning for business.
Yep.
Because that's one of my favourite issues. And I went back to some old notes of a conference I went to in Orange County some years ago, and Laurence Olivier's son goes around the world presenting I guess it's a visioning for business, and he goes to conferences and he uses one of Shakespeare's plays to highlight about visioning and planning, and he's turned it into a business concept.
I love it.
And I know what he got paid for that one, but it's unbelievable. And that's a byproduct of something that you just never know, do you, mate?
And it's Laurence Olivier's son.
It's Laurence Olivier's son.
So you probably know Shakespeare quite well.
Right. So I will dig out those notes again and pass them on.
How fascinating.
And it's by coincidence, because that conference was probably exactly this time, whenever it was, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
But so when you're at school, did you have any part-time jobs?
Yes, absolutely. My first job was at Pizza Haven, the local pizza place. I think I was paid $5 an hour, and worked alongside school, and then went to Coles like everyone else in Bendigo.
In fact, my son worked at Coles at Bendigo,
Yes.
as you do.
As you do.
But in the background, you always had this acting desire.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That was always going to be what I did, was acting.
Yeah.
It was, when you want to do acting, people say, what's your fallback career going to be? And I knew it was never going to be teaching. That was not the way my brain is wired. But I worked, retail was what I did alongside acting.
Yep. What sort of retail?
Selling cosmetics at pharmacies.
That's good. So what led then to getting into the hospitality and the tourism side? When did that?
Absolutely. So my parents owned a registered training organisation, and when I was, in my early 20s, I decided to help them. They were kind enough to give me a job as, an office administration assistant, and I was helping them with that. And then I thought, I'd quite like to learn bookkeeping. So then I looked at the local TAFE for some bookkeeping, but I already had a bachelor's degree, and so there wasn't any finance available to go and do a diploma. So then someone suggested, why don't you do a Master's of Business Administration? And I thought, well, that's quite a leap. So then I thought about it for a little bit longer. And about a year later, I thought, actually, a Master's of Business Administration would meet a lot of my needs. I like that there's a little bit of lots of different subjects. I could study while working. So that's what I did, and I went and did my MBA alongside working in an office and doing plays in the background, getting to play Lady Macbeth while doing it.
At Deakin?
Actually, I did it at Ballarat again. I went back to Ballarat.
Okay, good.
Federation, was it?
Yeah, it wasn't Fed Uni then, it was...
but because they've got a
Ballarat.
great MBA school.
They do have
really
a great...
good school.
It was lovely, and I really enjoyed the experience. I was lucky enough to go to France to study for a semester. It was wonderful. We had wonderful educators, and I did quite well. And when I finished, I was with my now husband, and we talked about how it would be nice to work for ourselves. He was managing a cafe in Castlemaine.
So he's the hospitality person?
He's the hospitality
Okay,
person, so
yep.
he's always been in hospitality. And then my stepfather, Andrew, one of the other owners of this business, was the president of the Bellarine Railway for over a decade, was a manager at the West Coast Wilderness Railway, big railway background.
Yep.
And we had sort of always joked that a railway restaurant would be the perfect way to combine all of our skills. And then Queensland Rail was selling off their Sunlander carriages. And my mum tells this story better than I, but she had bought a caravan to tour Australia, and my stepfather was hinting about retiring, and he said, I'll just go and have a look at these carriages. I'll just go and have a look at them.
Here's the tipping point.
Is it? Yeah.
And here's the tipping point. And then he calls us and he says, so I bought 22 of them, but some of them were really cheap. So we have 22 rail
22 carriages.
That we need to bring down.
And where were our
in
Cairns?
Cairns.
Okay. I love
But
this.
they were narrow gauge.
Yeah.
So that meant that we could use them on the Bellarine Railway, Queensland, or Tasmania.
Sorry, in the old language, is that the old 4'8" gauge?
Oh, goodness
You know?
me, I'm the wrong person to ask, and I feel terrible in
Narrow gauge.
We've got
Yeah,
narrow
narrow
gauge, standard, and
Yes.
wide, and we're narrow.
That's right.
On this little piece of track, we are narrow gauge. And so we said Tasmania or Queenscliff was what we were looking at. And so we did business plans for both, because both would have a wonderful food bowl. Because what I didn't explain was one of the carriages that he purchased had a fully functioning kitchen. So we knew then that we could do a restaurant train. So we looked at both options, and Queenscliff and the Bellarine Peninsula won out. It was the better business case, and so here we are.
No, it's really interesting because I know in other areas this has been tried, but I take my mind back to the trams in Melbourne,
Yes,
the restaurant trams.
absolutely.
And when I lived in Melbourne, you had to book weeks and weeks ahead.
You did, and I've been on that, and yes, it was good.
Yeah, so it's, what a fantastic opportunity though. And as we say, Mark, on a caravan, whatever, and you walk into a shed and you come home with a train. How does that happen?
Absolutely.
I've got to ask, how did you get the carriages down here?
Oh, that's a really good question. So when we started, one of our business partners, Michael Barclay, his business was moving carriages on the back of trucks. And he brought them down. That was his investment into the business.
Oh, wow.
He,
That's a
sadly
big job.
It was. He sadly passed away over COVID. So,
Oh, no.
But he was really instrumental in bringing the carriages down. He played a really important role. We did sell some along the way.
Yep.
Some people turned them into accommodation, and we kept lots of bits for spare parts.
And did you have to refurbish them all?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my husband is a career hospitality manager.
Yeah.
His-
Didn't know a screwdriver from a knife?
No, he was useless. But bless his
He will
heart,
listen to this, I remember.
That's fine, he knows. He is now fabulous. He really just studied with Andrew, and they learnt how to do it all. And honestly, we pulled down all the insides, we sanded the carriages, we repainted them. It's been 2017 was just renovating carriages. I mean, the first head chef we hired, he was involved in the process too. And we just, all of us, it was heads down, bum up, let's make the carriages look like a restaurant.
But, how many times do we come across this, Mark, in our lives and people we interview? Just the opportunities, but more importantly, it's the hard work that people put into it before they get started. And this is the risk. And what about our friend Shannon?
Yep.
Be brave.
Yep, be brave.
You were brave.
That's exactly right. We were brave, and we were smart about it. We didn't overextend. So lots of people kept showing us photos of, those trains from Europe with the beautiful wooden walls and everything.
The Orient Express.
These sort of things. And I said, look, we could do that, but it would incur significant
Huge cost.
investment. Whereas what we could focus on is fabulous produce and excellent service and a train.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. And so we haven't overextended ourselves. We did it all with no borrowings, and that is what got us through COVID. The fact
So
that
as
had
we
no
sit here
borrowings.
today, what is you've had a successful past. What are you looking like for 2025 as far as patronage goes?
Well, if you want to come on a weekend, you need to come at the end of March, and we are in January now.
That's
so
good.
feeling pretty happy about
That's
that.
very good.
One of the things we did last year was move to 5 days a week. So we were averaging about 85% capacity over Friday, Saturdays and Sundays. And we knew that moving to an extra 2 days was a significant investment. We'd have to bring on a lot more staff. It would be rougher on the tracks. It was a big investment. And we'd be opening weekdays, right, which are traditionally more quiet. It's not like we're going to be opening another weekend.
Yep.
So it was a lot of planning to open these extra 2 days. And we decided to open Mondays and Thursdays. We started that in February. We knew that we'd drop our average capacity, but that we knew that eventually this would help us in the international market, in the tourism market. And I was so pleased to say at our Christmas party in December that February 12th, we started doing 5 days a week. And by December, our average over February to December had dropped down to 82%.
Well, that's very good.
Still absolutely bringing in people on those Mondays and Thursdays.
But you've got
so that was wonderful. And so that's the plan, I hope, for 2025 is that's
really good.
Now,
continues.
During the interview, we can already feel your passion, see your passion,
Really?
and hear your passion. But
you can't see me sitting on my
in
hands.
your role as the CEO,
Yes.
what attributes do you bring to the business that make it so successful?
Worrying.
Yeah, because remember, business owners are listening to this.
Yes.
And so what are the lessons you can pass on to some of our listeners about how you've approached this from, a leadership management perspective?
Absolutely. Constant growth requires constant introspective behaviour. I review my skill set, I review our leadership skill sets, and if we're missing something, we provide training in that area, we provide research in that area. I'm a learner. I like reading books. I like, watching TED Talks. I like improving my skill set. I meet with a leadership coach. I speak with a therapist. These are things that are important in ensuring that I am at my game for my staff and for my business. I bring, and I say this jokingly, but it's serious as well, I worry. I do plan. I care about things to the minute detail, and my husband and my stepfather, they play a really important big picture role, whereas I care about the minutiae, and between us, we work
together
as a leadership team. One of the lessons I've really learned is how to operate a family business well, and that's where I think a lot of businesses really struggle because it is difficult. I mean, my husband spends more time with his in-laws than the average person, and we maintain that the reason we succeed is we stay in our lane. We know what bits we're experts at, and we focus on that, and we advise each other, we help each other, but we don't cross into each other's lane.
It's MC. It's
very good.
It's the same as in my role as family business consultant. Is I always put forward the question: how do you take the corporate disciplines that I've learned in my own business and big business, put them into a family business without killing the culture?
Absolutely.
And that's what you've just described. Is you've probably got job descriptions for each of you, and right, that's the corporate side of it. You sit down and review everything you're doing, but more importantly, you work as a team together.
Yes.
Right, and I would imagine egos is not a word that's in your vocabulary.
It's not a helpful word in any case, and I think, I am an actor, so I have an ego. I'll take applause anytime anyone wants to give it to me. But I think that it is not conducive to business success. And one of the things that we work on is, especially my husband and I, because we have 2 young children as well, is balancing where does work finish and when does our home life start back up again. And that's important. You have to plan those conversations. We have a no work before coffee, and when you get home, you have to ask permission to talk about work. Do you mind if I discuss this work issue with you?
Otherwise, it's 24/7.
Otherwise, it's 24/7, and that's no fun.
Most family businesses, you learn by osmosis talk around the kitchen table when all the talk is about business. But what about succession? Have you addressed the whole issue of succession? Because that's a huge issue now for a lot of family businesses.
That is such a good question. And yes, so Andrew's son Sam is learning the railway side of things, the train, and he is wonderful at it. And he has just taken that on and is really growing in that role. So a lot of that knowledge is being passed down to him. Andrew's run businesses for years. I learn a lot from him, and I think he learns a lot from me as well in the new way of doing things. So succession in that regard is being planned for. We have brought on, I mentioned a leadership coach. We've started leadership training within our management team. I think in hospitality, a real risk, and in a lot of businesses, is that we promote people to supervisor or management roles, but we give them no leadership skills.
Yep.
We just give them a little bit more money and say, also, could you run everything, please, in our absence?
You know, that's called the Peter Principle.
The Peter Principle?
People get promoted to their own level of incompetence.
That's it, though, isn't it?
It is.
And so we recognise that because we did award applications. So last year, when we were writing our applications for the Geelong Business Awards and also for the Victorian Tourism Awards, you do a lot of work on what does your business look like, where are your strengths, and where are your weaknesses. And that worrying that I mentioned before, that's where that comes in. I look at where are the weaknesses. And that's what I was noticing, that that's where we could invest time and training, and it's been really wonderful.
Well, that's an interesting comment. Mark and I ran a workshop with about 30 small business people in recent times, and one of our key subjects was a SWOT analysis.
Yes.
And you get people saying, oh, that's old hat and all this. No, it's one of the most important things you can do.
Once a year. You've got to do one at least once a year.
Absolutely.
Very good. That's very good.
You have to. And if your weakness is still a weakness, what are you doing to address it? Because there are some things that are outside of your control, but some aren't, and you should be reviewing them.
Yep.
And you don't want your strengths to become complacent in them and overlook them. I think, the SWOT analysis is crucial.
So how many people in the team?
The whole team, I just hired another person yesterday, so we've got 33 all up, working in administration, in the kitchen, in maintenance, and serving tables. So there's a big mix of us.
Well, if I gave you a magic wand, one wish, no expense spared, no restrictions, what would you do to this business to take it to the next step?
Magic wand, no expense spared. I would build my own carriage from the ground up that is completely accessible, that would fit a motorised wheelchair on board. That's what I would do.
Well, actually, that's a really good segue. And this wasn't set up, was it? Because you won the Geelong Business Excellence Awards for Inclusivity and Accessibility.
Yes.
So what do you do in that space? Which is, I love your thinking. So what do you do? Because it is tricky, the carriages and how to get in, and they're narrow, deliberately narrow. So
Absolutely. So when we started, we were of the opinion that if you couldn't get a wheelchair on board, you couldn't be accessible, so just cross that off your to-do list. It's an impossibility. And our phrase was, they're old carriages, they weren't designed to be accessible, too bad, so sad. And then a customer wrote on Facebook once and said, did you ever think the reason these carriages were discontinued is because they weren't accessible? And it was one of those things that just ate at my brain.
Yep.
And I went, yes. And then over, on social media, I started following influencers in the accessibility space, and I realised there was so much more to it. And so then we started looking at ways that we could be accessible. And we worked with La Trobe Community Health Service, their community capacity building team, and they came and did some work with us about what we could do. For example, offer menus in large print. That was no effort whatsoever. I just had to click Zoom and then print. That was nothing. Geelong Libraries has a Braille printer that is free to use.
Yep.
Print all my menus in Braille. I promise you watch one dad read the menu for his family for the first time at a restaurant because he can read it in Braille, and
that's very cool.
You decide that, okay, this is something I care about now. Yep. And so then we found a narrow wheelchair, and we found a ramp, and we are very clear in our communications of what we can and can't do, and that was what the La Trobe Community Health team taught us. So wheelchair users are all different. So we say, this is what we can do. These are our measurements. Yeah. I hope this is accessible to you, but understand that it might not be. And then we hired staff with neurodivergent staff. And one of them mentioned, she goes, I really like to look at menus before I come, but one of the other things I like to do is know what to expect. She goes, do you mind if I write a dot point of what to expect when people arrive? Because it makes me feel more comfortable. Fabulous. So Molly wrote that for me. And it's been wonderful. And then customers really loved that. So then I thought, we could write a social story to help people know what to expect. And we did that. And then we moved on from there. So our accessibility page on our website is very clear and concise and addresses most needs. We have an audio guide through Vacate that people can listen to. We print out the tasting notes so if people who are hard of hearing can still enjoy the tasting notes of the wine and the food. We find that these have been really important steps. And then what we brought in last year was the Hidden Disability Sunflower Training, which is for people who have hidden disabilities. They can wear a green sunflower lanyard or pin, and that indicates to people who are trained that I have a hidden disability. Could you please ask me if I need help? And all of our staff have done that training. In doing so, we had a number of staff disclose having hidden disabilities. They now wear both green and white pins. White means you've done the training, green means you have a hidden disability. And that's been wonderful. So now we have in our menu books, we have our staff who are wearing green pins have disabilities. Our staff wearing white pins are trained to help you if you had a hidden disability. And that's been really wonderful because one of our staff who has a hidden disability and self-identifies that way, we had received complaints that she was too friendly.
Too friendly?
Mm-hmm. And
in hospitality?
And customers had been quite rude to her.
Oh, that's terrible.
She has told us that since the hidden disability training, staff have become more welcoming and understanding of her, and customers have become extremely kind and welcoming. And that's been really lovely.
That's excellent.
Brilliant.
Yeah. No wonder you won the award in the Geelong Business Awards.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. So I get your passion then. If you could make a carriage that would allow anybody to get on.
Yes, I would put a hearing loop in it. I would make it the doors really wide. It would have a built-in ramp. It would have easily accessible toilets. The lights could be dimmed for people who needed dimmer lights. The sound could be more easily controlled. I love our old carriages. They're so much fun and they bring so much character and they're part of the story of the business, but they do have their limitations. And I would just love one that I could build from the ground up. I'm
sure there's some grants out there somewhere that would let you do one carriage. It would be fantastic. It would be fantastic. Doing a bit of a backflip, Do you still do acting?
I do. I work with a theatre company in Geelong, a little profit share company, and we do new Australian works. And I've just been cast in a play called The Deplorables, which is about the first women's cricket match, which was held in Bendigo. And we tour Victoria, so it'll be lots of fun.
So how do you manage that?
I have a lovely husband and a lovely mum who help. And with work, I have a great team.
So you delegate,
that's right.
and
that's one of the
good track. That's fantastic.
One of the key issues, of course, about leadership is the business continues to meet all its standards and continues to run properly, even if you're there or not.
One of my key phrases when someone presents me with an idea is great. Is it replicable? Can we do it every time? If you're going to offer something to a customer, make it replicable, make it sustainable. We can't offer one thing to one customer and not another. It needs to be something that we can do regardless of who's in charge, regardless of the chef on the day, regardless of the train manager on the day. And that's when we make changes. And one of the things we implemented in the last couple of years was we have a staff member, Molly, who I mentioned before. She works both in administration and on board. And what she does is ensure that what we're promising customers is what we're delivering customers. And that's, I think, really key. And then I ensure I do a shift on the train once a month, talk to customers, see how it's going.
Important.
You get much more information that way than just relying on reports.
It's the old management by wandering about, Bill.
That's right.
Managing by wandering about, or getting in the way. Managing by getting in the way.
So two final questions. One, where can people see you playing?
Oh, they can see it at the Warnponds Hall, or in Bendigo, or in Warrnambool, or in Hobart.
Is there a website for this?
Yes, Skin of Our Teeth.
Skin of Our Teeth.
And starting when?
We start in June.
Okay, and have you learnt your lines?
Not yet.
And the second question, just talk about the experience on the Q train. So people book, turn up, what do they get?
Absolutely. So people book online and they tell us when they're booking if they've got any access needs or any dietary requirements, because we can't deal with them on the day if we don't know beforehand. But we're happy to deal with, vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free, FODMAP. We do the works.
Yep.
And people arrive at Drysdale Station, where we are now, and we greet them by name. And then we'll take them to the bar and we'll give them a glass of local bubbly or local lager or a non-alcoholic fruit punch. Sometimes there might be a canapé there if our apprentices are practicing a new skill. Then we'll take them through to one of two dining carriages. We've got a first-class dining experience or a Q-class dining experience. Q-class is our social dining carriage. It's like sitting in a normal restaurant. And we have 5 courses of local produce, and then you purchase drinks as you go along. In first class, it's private dining. We have them for couples for 2, or then we have them for groups of 4 to 10 people. And in this one, you get the 5 courses, but you also get paired drinks with your meals, and you get paired wine, beer, or mocktails. Now, everything on board the Q train is from Geelong, Bellarine in the Otways. This is something we don't compromise on and we don't change. We only use local providers and we only use independently owned local providers. So we know that when you're eating our beef, you are supporting a local family, putting their kids through dance classes, through cricket. People come to a train restaurant once because it's a train restaurant. They come back a second time because the service is good. They become regulars because they care about the ethos and what they're doing, and that's where the supporting local comes in.
And where's the train go?
We go to Queenscliff.
Along the tracks.
Along the tracks we do. We go along the Bellarine Railway. We go from Drysdale, we'll stop at Suma Park usually.
Yep.
Then we'll get to Queenscliff, and then at Queenscliff we'll put the engine on the other end, and then we'll make our way back again. So we pass by farms, we pass by olive groves, wineries, and then of course the gorgeous internationally recognised Swan Bay.
And I'd highly recommend it. Having done the first class experience, magnificent.
Well, Mark, it looks like I'm going to have to book a ticket. 2 tickets, sorry. 2 tickets.
So, Marie-Claire, thank you.
Thank you so much.
An incredible journey. And good luck with the playing.
Thank you.
And good luck with the business this year.
Thank you.
And good luck with the awards in March, the National Tourism Awards. And I hope you come home with something.
Oh, me too.
Right. Yes, it's been a pleasure listening to your story, and I hope it inspires many of our listeners.
Thank you.
Thank you.